Hello, everyone. It is Monday, the 18th of September, 2023, and it's been again a bit of time since I've been on social media, at least doing videos. I've actively been on my Instagram, my Twitter, X, and Facebook and LinkedIn and other social media platforms like that, but nothing regarding any videos, just because it's been an intense period. I'm not gonna lie, and so there's a lot to discuss. And we just had Rosh Hashanah over the weekend from the 15th to the 17th of September, which is a Hebrew Jewish Jesuit holiday. And there's a lot of people that want to blame certain religious groups or occult groups for creating a lot of the mess that we're dealing with right now. And while that may be fair, because there are people that we can name and identify that are part of, everything that's going on, like all the crisis actors and like staged and planned events that are happening that are ruining our lives essentially. But people often, and I've said this in previous videos too, but people often exploit religious holidays. Okay, I've even talked about this, like over Christmas time as well, and even like Thanksgiving and Easter, like various holidays from various religious groups, like even Eid or like Hanukkah. There's anyways multiple examples where there's groups that try to ruin these religious organizations or these religious gatherings and celebrations intentionally because they don't like what they stand for, right? So there's the Nipah virus that just was announced like over the weekend during Rosh Hashanah, and people are trying to say like, oh look, during their holiday, what I mean, this is what they're doing, and it's like, did you stop and think that maybe there are people that are intentionally doing this and targeting these groups and these organizations, are trying to lay blame on these groups blatantly because that's like the easiest playbook, right? Like that's oh my god, it's always anyway. So don't necessarily just like immediately think that just because it was announced during like a special holiday that it had anything to do with the people that are celebrating. And oftentimes, if you haven't noticed throughout history, these groups are very much attacked, harassed at the minor level, and there's beauty in all religions if you are able to properly interpret it and decipher it, which a lot of people are not doing, even religious leaders. And anyways, I'm going on all these tangents, but September is a significant month for a lot of different groups. I've mentioned about the 23rd of September being the fall equinox, and the position where Jesus Christ sits literally at the Last Supper, literally my background, and in between Virgo and Libra. And where a lot of people also say is the day of judgment or redemption, or when the rapture is going to happen. Even Robert Blake, I might be saying his name wrong. He's a religious leader. He's very intelligent, and I'll get into it when I get into my videos. But I just wanted to start with that stuff. So Nipah and Marburg virus. There's a lot of hype towards it. Actually, why don't I just present just some of the information coming from the like the official organizations, and let's see, this one's from the World Health Organization. These organizations, there are people within also at the top that lie about this stuff. So it's a highly virulent disease that causes hemorrhagic fever with a fatality ratio of up to 88%. So like even with the 88 in here, with that, like that to me is just like more in plain sight, like a sacred gematria, like numbers being used that are significant with the analema and the infinity symbols and the ecliptical path of the sun in this, and there's so much more. But there's a lot also like there's a lot of information misleading in this as well, right? With the fatality rate and in the areas with the percentage that they're saying it is, it's not that's not true. And let me see if I can stop sharing the screen, because I have to individually share how I have my streamer configuration set up. I'm sure if I had a higher package, then I could probably do an entire window. Anyway, so here we have the Nipah virus that they're talking about. This is from the CDC. Again, not a trustworthy organization either, as is blatantly clear, just even in the questioning going on about about the original vaccines, the therapeutics that were being used, and them knowing and signing off on the fact that there was unknown risk. And so again, this is more fear mongering. And so point to these inoculations, whatever you want to call them, or any disease or illness, which I've repeatedly stressed or urged or insisted that or recommended, sorry, is that people take it upon themselves to filter water, because there's a lot of hormones in our water supplies. There's a lot of pharmaceutical drugs that are being passed through our urine or our fecal matter and our showers, and like even with like chemicals and stuff like that that are used, like even on our own hair. And not me, because I choose products that are not harmful to my hair, but there's and even cleaning products. These are all products that are put into draining systems, drains and sinks, especially in like more suburb areas, city centers, and not properly filtered when it's going back into your house. And there's so many other products too that are leaching into the ground, and things like that that are not healthy. And so that would be a good start. Then also with food, there's a lot of chemicals, and there's a lot of like not good ingredients within a lot of overly processed packaged foods. And so if people eat more of a fresh, raw, organic um, meal plan, like eat fresh, raw, organic foods more, and if they're to consume meat, like have lower or moderate amounts of meat in your diet, but also coming from like healthy animals, not animals that have been tortured and abused and pushed full of antibiotics and steroids to grow, in 3 weeks when it should be taking you 3 to 6 months. And these are all things that we're consuming too. So we are what we eat, and there's a lot of experts that we're actually getting censored. And actually, maybe I'll even share this information where even there were people within all levels of government and agencies that were censoring information. So let's see if I can bring this up. Adam Gartner, Gaertner, Special Operations Command contracted a New York firm to deploy AI for social media management. This is the result. This is an AI-generated message threatening Emerald Robinson for opposing mask mandates. Take a long, hard look military deployment on U.S. soil against U.S. citizens. So I can go into this, but this is something that I shared on X, and I'm at Don Dussault on X. And so there's someone named Emerald Robinson who's an independent journalist, and she had said something about masks or public health. And immediately she had this like really, really long AI generated response back. So you can't even see it, which is why. And yeah, and so there's a lot of like insults in here. And yeah, Emerald, it seems you've truly outdone yourself with this latest spew of irresponsible nonsense. So like right off the get-go, like just like insulting and attacking. And this is a bot, right? So like this is why a lot of people get duped. Like even on social media, like on people are responding to this AI generated bot. And I even said like 4 days ago, like it's AI generated, and other people are saying it as well. But yeah, so so a lot of things that you're posting online, if people are commenting back, like pay attention to it, right? It could be a bot, it could be someone that's paid to troll you, and they don't care if the narrative is true or not, right? Because like people are just losers. Oh my god, and it's so infuriating, because like not only is silence violence and compliance, so like that's bad enough, right? These people that just like allowed everything to freaking happen, and don't even understand or realize how significant this is. And with the lockdowns and the mandates and the forced inoculations and the lying about the adverse events and the stillborns and the miscarriages and the people that were contracting the virus actually through the inoculations, 4.6% of the population. And so knowing that people were lying when they said that you would prevent the spread and not contract it, when even in the original trials that I've shared repeatedly to all levels of government and media and stuff like that, yeah, it's just frustrating. So I'm going through like a lot of points here. So do I want to continue on with Nipah and Marburg before I go on to FEMA and a nationwide emergency alert test for the 4th of October at 20:20 p.m. I guess that would be Eastern Standard Time. But yeah, so that's just something to consider and pay attention to. I'm just going through my my Signal messaging stuff just to see what I've talked about in the last week, just to make sure. Oh yeah, I shared another NASA reference publication 1207, a very interesting number in sacred gematria. Like I've talked about 2701 and the meanings between like with that as well and the importance of it. And of course, I see it here on this publication, August 1988, and it's the derivation and definition of a linear aircraft model. And this again discusses the Earth on a flat, non-rotating plane. And again, just like more, I've shared Army publications and other archived government publications and stuff like that. And yeah, so I'm not just sharing videos and books on this stuff to try to debunk this pseudoscience that's being taught to us, but I'm also like going right to the sources and proving this as well. There's just so much going on with March for Freedom, so we're going to talk about that as well. There's a peaceful protest that is going to be happening on the 20th of September on Wednesday, 2023. And it's going to be at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it's all over Canada. There's people from the Yukon, Nova Scotia that are going to be involved in peaceful protests. So what this is, it's just essentially a walkout of school systems and teachers wanting to just discuss the fact that they are not in solidarity or support with anyone that is trying to push castrating children, sterilizing children, pornographic books in public libraries, and these are all things that people are trying to say. This is not about that, you know, like it's that people that are doing the March of Freedom that like we're a hate group and or it's like right wing conservatives when that is such a lie. And this is again just like more excuses that people make when they have nothing else to go off of, right? So there's people from all walks of life, from all political backgrounds and affiliations and all different religions and not religions, like people that are not religious as well, like people from all different groups, like I said before, that are going to be getting together and just going to either government buildings and or, well, schools are essentially government buildings, but, and then just like discussing this and they want to have a platform. And so what's going on now, there's now counter protests being organized. And there are people that are organizing where they want this to even be violent in some cases, and they're trying to say that they're the protectors of children, part of people that are part of that are unfortunately hiding behind the LGBTQ plus community in order to like I don't know, insist on an agenda and a narrative that literally harms children, right? And so we have laws in place for children where they're not able to drive, where they're not able to smoke, they're not able to drink, they're not able to do cosmetic surgeries, none of these things. So how is it that they should be allowed to have hormone treatments that are going to sterilize them or prevent them from growing or properly developing and or mutilating them or castrating them that has been done time and time again? And trying to say that they're protecting children by allowing this stuff to happen when there's a lot of kids and or adults now that had these life-altering surgeries or procedures done when they were younger, and it was only after 1 or 2 appointments where they were approved for getting their breasts removed or their penises removed, and not even properly developed organs yet, right? So just to be clear with this stuff, and children, I have a cognitive science background as well, although it's on hold. I'm in my 4th year at Carleton University because they're teaching pseudoscience and they're trying to push this pronoun agenda where they're trying to say that pronouns have nothing to do with sexuality or sexual identification, and it absolutely does, right? And so there's people that are not against homosexuality. Not at all. People that have family that are homosexual and or homosexual themselves, you know, and they're also like Gays Against Groomers is a classic example. They're against children being targeted for pharmaceutical companies and stuff like that to be lifelong clients, right? And there's more studies coming out as well where within a few years after surgeries that are life altering like that, there's a higher suicide rate in these specific communities or demographics, and lower quality of life and stuff like that, and people that are considering even made euthanasia, and it's disgusting. And these are things that I've shared, so I'm not just making this stuff up. And it's frustrating. So yeah, there's like these counter protesters that like are pretending um, that they're not groomers and people that are mentally unwell that have gender dysphoria, whatever you want to call it, and they're trying to embrace this and have it where because they can't procreate or it is what it is that they want to increase like their demographic because then it's more people that they can have like again like in their cult essentially is what. And yes, I'm friggin' calling it a cult. I'm not calling the LGBTQ a cult. I'm calling certain people within the group, which is a low percentage actually within that group, that are causing a lot of um misleading, I don't know, like I'd say like information. Anyway, I don't even know how to explain this. Just like people that are mentally unwell and unhinged that are now even on the 20th of September trying to counter protest and talking about filling seats in committees or panels where like it would be for people to have open discussions, even parents. So people that don't even have kids, and I don't have kids either, right? But like I'm someone that has that's family oriented, that has wanted kids, and then also have nieces and nephews and cousins and stuff like that. And I still believe in so I don't hate families. I'm not like one of these people that are attacking families. The traditional nuclear family. And where was it going with this stuff? Anyway, I've got so many things I want to talk about. I should really start getting more what do you want to call it? Regular with these videos. So on the 20th of September, if you can peacefully protest or even just do hashtags with March for Freedom and show your solidarity or your support, then these are good ways to try to like make a strong voice to our cabinet that has like that's full of these like woke ideological morons that are just not getting the reality of the world. And I don't know. And like they should be like reading a lot of the information that people are sharing and why they're opposed to what's being taught in the schools, right? And it's not as simple as like, oh, like we're like right-wing extremists or like religious zealots, and you know what I mean? Like just want to like, you know, brainwash children into like whatever. No, that's we're trying to prevent. I'm trying to look for um, another video I had on this, but let me see. Yeah, like I could share. I shared this on Signal and Telegram, but there's Antifa and there's big unions that are organizing events again to intimidate parents. Is specifically what they were saying, and it's almost 3 hours, and there are people that are whistleblowing on this, and I've shared this um, that are allowing like people to know again just like how crazy this might get on the other side. I've even had my house tagged by a man named Autumn Rain, who also has gender dysphoria, and he was a big man, and slapped on lipstick and claimed that was like like made him a woman. And so like so even though he targeted my house during a time like this past April, just before this past April, when there was a mass shooting by a trans person at a school, children and teachers, so crazy. And yeah, so tried to incite violence on specific people that they were targeting, and I was already being targeted by people within Ottawa that were also investigating people like Helen Bruce, who is Ottawa Police Services, who is a literal hero and detective who is speaking out on therapeutics within children, amongst children, and mandates and things like that, and showing a lot of data on this, and then getting character assassinated and vilified also amongst her peers. And I would argue not her peers, but her subordinates, in common sense. And so people I should have been taking notes from her. And I've worked with her on contracts before, and an incredible human being, and should have been promoted, but instead vilified, just like Tamara Leach is being vilified in the media, especially in Ottawa, with where the most of the woke groomers seem to be. And I know this is all buzzwords and stuff like that, but people can understand what I'm talking about when I say it. Okay. So I talked about Marburg, check. Nipah virus, Rosh Hashanah just happened, September 23rd. There are a lot of people saying that this may be like a significant event. Again, people say this every single year, and it's because like people don't make the connection with behind me where Jesus is sitting at this table, which is literally at the 23rd of September fall equinox period, where we have the equal amount of days and nights, the harvest period, going from Virgo into Libra, going from like the Virgin Mary into like the scales, or again, where people believe that this is the judgment day, and or the day of redemption, or the rapture. And so just all very interesting things, and I think it has to do with astronomy, and not so much to do, you never know, but I'm just saying, like, I'm more of a realist. And ironically, people think that I'm a pseudoscientist because I discuss like facts regarding flat simulation Earth. That tends to make me lose credibility somehow, even though I literally share proof with NASA documents and Army publications and scientific research. And there's this Professor Dave guy online who, I don't know, he's so popular. I don't know how he has so many friggin' views, but he's been debunked repeatedly by Eric Dubay and David Weiss and Nathan Oakley and me and many others online publicly. And still somehow this guy gets more views. Actually, I'm just going to open one of them just to give you an example of this Professor Dave and him getting debunked. And then I'll get into freaking, oh my God, there's just so much I can get into. I'm looking at my history that you can't see. Okay, and I have to remember to share my screen.
That
Okay,
wants to have an actual meaningful dialogue about any of this stuff, make sure you understand that point. And if you're one of these goofs who's just that mentally deficient, don't be afraid to invest in a tutor. It could be the best money you ever spent. If your ego doesn't have you on such short strings that you can actually examine the possibility that maybe you don't understand plain English or the basics of science or logic, even on a children's level, it might be a good investment. So we will get started here. As always, if you find the Mindshock podcast interesting, informative, entertaining, and you want to help bring... Actually, we forgot one more. There's appeal to humor. So the appeal to humor logical fallacy.
So this is regarding interviews. The person that's speaking, I don't know what his name is, and I've heard him like assess videos before. He's as non-biased, or attempts to be as unbiased as he can be, and he's not coming at this video regarding flat Earth versus globe Earth. He's looking at it how people are formulating their arguments and how they're either debunking or reinforcing their like what they're saying. And Professor Dave, well, whatever his name is, Farina, whatever his name is, he's a loser. I'm frustrated because again, he gets so many views, and in the allegories on YouTube, like he gets pushed up like at the top, even though what he's saying is completely ignorant. And I've shared Eric Dubay debunking him as well. Maybe not on here, so I will.
Is the use of humor to ridicule an opponent and or direct attention away.
And I get infuriated because again, like I get people that are globe earthers that have no facts on their own model about the spin, the rotation, like the distance between like the sun and the moon, like all of this stuff, the ecliptical paths too, and speeds, distances, curvatures, angles, none of this shit. And people that are flat earthers know this information even more so than these people do, because we've actually had to look through it and compare and assess and do our own research and compile our own data and all this other stuff in order to refute it, right? Because we were at people that were coming at this from like, there's no way, we've been duped into thinking that the Earth is a globe when it's not. And then it's like, oh wow, we actually have to look at information with an unbiased lens and actually consider actual facts that are laid out like in front of us in our own eyes, and then make our own assessments. And yeah,
away from the issue at hand. In Latin, this is called argument.
And I get these videos that people click like 1 second to do a Google search, and I get more videos, like it's the same video over and over again. And that's why these videos are debunked, because this guy, he takes parts of his interviews or his videos where he just is rude and ignorant, and he's saying things that are not even true, and then he's pretending that they're they're true. And
ad festivatum and reductio ad absurdum. Like name calling, red herring, and strawman, the appeal to humor is a fallacy that manipulates through distraction. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm going to avoid putting anything on the counter thus far because we're still in the intro. So I guess this wouldn't be part of the debate. But Dave, right off the bat, I mean, Flat Earth Dave here has made a claim that so-called Professor Dave has strawmans the Flat Earthers' arguments in order to appear to debunk them, which is actually true if you look at his channel. And Professor Dave responds with so sarcastically, again, sarcasm, a form of humor, that he hasn't seen his channel, as if he doesn't do this. Now, neither one actually demonstrated exactly how they do that. So even though Flat Earth Dave is technically correct here, I'm going to give Professor Dave the benefit of the doubt since the formal debate has not officially started and we're still on the intros. I won't put that on the counter.
I have, but your Flat Earth stuff is is gaslighting us essentially.
It's devastating and destroys Flat Earth easily.
Absolutely.
So straw man. Oh, he says that they think the Earth is flat. What a straw man!
Oh man, so that's obviously not the straw man. So he just straw man the allegations on the straw man. I'm gonna
see what he does. It's very manipulating, and for people that are not aware of it, I'll say they get easily duped into siding with people that they see as intimidating. So this Dave Farina guy who looks like he's like he's a weak beta male that needs sunlight and to like lift weights and eat better and maybe try to learn how to hunt and fish and do manly things in his life instead of ruining everyone's life by lying to us and keeping this narrative going. But like he insults people, and he's very good at insulting people and distracting people that way, right? And so this is what I just like in arguments and debates is oftentimes, especially in my environment with people that I work with, my colleagues and my peers, I get talked over, and it's loud and it's like condescending, stuff like this. So I'm more able to like I don't know, ignore it or attempt to ignore it and try to insist or push my own points across, even though again, like these people will it's so infuriating because it often goes nowhere because they're so emotionally invested into like these temper tantrums and stuff like that and being like so insulting and derogatory that like no matter what you do or say, just like Dave Weiss, who's not even allowing him to have a conversation before he's like just not allowing it to happen. And this happens to me a lot, which is why I started doing these videos on social media to begin with, because like in my own network, I was getting shut down, which is why even with the COVID pandemic, people were not believing me with this stuff, with what was going on with Russia and Ukraine, and like not considering any of the information with that either. And none other. And I'm not going to take that on and blame myself for not being able to properly converse. There are people that are just bullies.
We're starting it now because I actually can't recall anyone in a debate ever strawmanning on top of a strawman like Professor Dave just did, because clearly the belief that's not the strawman. This is already hilarious and we're just getting started. So that's one logical fallacy count for Professor Dave right out of the gate. Just because it was a straw man on top of the straw man, I gave him a benefit of the doubt on the first one, but now we're firmly in straw man logic fallacy.
I'm with you. Listen, I don't mean to come off that way. Would it be okay to look for some common ground? Can I just ask a couple of quick questions?
Dave Weiss is actually a really nice guy. And even though he's been insulted repeatedly by this prick, he's still like saying, coming across in a very nice way. And a lot of people wouldn't, right? Like who can sit through being talked to like that and then still try to get points across, right? And he's still really good at it. And he's still trying to come at this being the better person and saying like, can we find common ground?
Dave, you good with that?
Whatever you want to do, man.
Yeah, I'm just for to see if we have any common ground. Do you believe we went to the moon?
This guy's married.
Okay. Do you believe that governments are here, especially the American government, for the people's well-being?
It's a pretty complicated question.
Okay, you don't have to answer. That's fine. That's good. Do you believe that there's censorship going on YouTube?
Yes. Some stuff is deprioritized in the algorithm. I don't know if that qualifies as censorship.
Deprioritized. So he's
and
saying that
deprioritizing. My point to that is again, Google censors videos that they don't want to have pushed up at the top, right? And so this is intentional. So so I don't know. Like he's actually proving our point. Like your dumbass videos that people continuously refute and debunk easily, they get downgraded and deprioritized for your stupid videos.
There is no censorship. So there's a clear difference here. So this is obfuscation. You could classify this under red herring because clearly YouTube flat out removes content, which is censorship. He's talking about, he's obfuscating by saying that there is deprioritizing, which is also true. This is kind of a form of shadow banning or not recommending certain subjects or whatever, or being very selective where certain so-called controversial subjects, you will get the attempted debunking, whether or not the debunking is valid or not on many controversial issues. That'll come up first when you search certain topics. And the debunking of those debunkings will never come up when you search those. They will not be prioritized. So what Professor Dave just said is technically true. So that's two logical fallacies for Professor Dave at this moment. Now, how could he not know that YouTube censors and flat out removes? I'm assuming this is dishonesty. Now, again, I don't know. Perhaps Professor Dave has a mental disability and he is being honest and he simply does not have the processing power. I'm not going to assume to know what his psychological issues are, or whether he's arguing in good faith or playing stupid and not arguing in good faith, or whether he's actually that dumb. I don't know. And
is the news here to inform or to fill us with propaganda?
The news is largely propaganda. None of that has anything to do with the shape of the earth. So I don't know
Yeah, it does though.
what the hell you're even talking about. Literally none of that has to do with the shape of the earth. So
now Sean Atwood definitely looks like a guy with a mental disability. Because why is he laughing? Clearly, because we're talking about appeals to authority, scientism.
Yeah. So the appeals to authority, people not wanting to be on the side of like the loser. So when you have someone that comes across as a bully, generally speaking, these are the people that people like they end up doing like these like fawning type like responses and behaviors like Sean Atwood's doing and stuff like that, because like he wants it to be known, you know what I mean? Like I'm part of like the cool kids. I'm part of like the whatever. And I'm gonna like this guy is so frustrating, honestly. Like I don't want
these corrupt institutions that run universities.
Like I get salty because like this guy, like people like they always send me the same 2 videos that he cherry picked and created on his site. And that I keep on debunking and refuting, and I share it immediately now because I have it on standby, right? These videos like that debunk those videos, and people don't even look at them. And I'm like, you literally just sent me that, and you did your little mic drop and your celebration. Yeah, I got her. And then I literally within 5 seconds refuted it, and you don't even want to look at the video. Cool. So like again, like how can we get a dialogue, right? People like Marco Mendicino, like I tried repeatedly to conversate with him. Shared my resume, emailed him with so much freaking data, and gave him like tabs on information that he should have known and that he was lying to cabinet about, and ultimately us as well, and not listening or looking at the information. In fact, laughed at me and yeah, and look at the shit show we've been in. So I'm going to look for a video that debunks Professor Dave again. That friggin' guy, it's so annoying. Another person that is the one that should be deplatformed, and it has millions of views and subscribers, and it's just like, okay, cool. I share so many videos. There's also a flat Earth channel on Discord, and I highly discourage people from going on it, unfortunately, because I share literally most of the actual content on it. And then what do people do? They do distraction comments and put pornographic stuff up, and like there's cheese repeatedly. Like they put in words just to push people away from like the proof that people like me share. And it's really, really frustrating. Sorry, I'm just trying to see here. There's so many. It's hard to, we don't go in history. I'll keep playing this until I find the
cities in media platforms. I mean, this is all common knowledge to anybody who's not a complete religious fanatic in terms of being an authority worshiping cultist who never questions anything coming from perceived authorities. But Sean Atwood here, I mean, if he's listening to this, I mean, he chooses that moment to laugh hysterically. I mean, he might not be all there in the head. I mean, this is shaping up to be quite entertaining.
You're really just
looking for some common ground. That's all.
Oh, so we both don't like the government, therefore the Earth is flat.
Wow, another straw man. Fallacy number 3, because that's clearly not what Dave. Flat Earth Dave clearly outlined his intention of seeing if they have any common ground in order. He's going to, I'm assuming he wanted to build arguments off of that, or even if not, even just small talk, making conversation at the beginning. And now Professor Dave, I mean, you could put that, I'm not going to give him 2 fallacies here because again, he's trying to be humorous with the straw man. And technically it is both, but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and just put it in as a straw man, because a lot of straw men are funny. So technically, to keep this as accurate as possible, appeals to humor will be, I will put fallacies there that are not also other fallacies. So I'm not going to double up on that one.
So the common ground is then we're going to try and keep talking points to 3 minutes each, responses to 2 or 3 minutes each, so we could get through this hour and everyone could get an equal share of the time involved here. And I think the first point that we've got up on the list is, what is gravity?
You want to go first, Dave, or you want me to go?
Oh, okay. That's how we're doing this. Okay, so according to general relativity, it's the curvature of space-time around massive objects. And so this is one of the easiest ways to know that the Earth is a sphere, because everything we see, everything, including the Earth, right, very large, massive objects are crushed into a sphere. That's why stars, planets, moons, everything pretty much is spheres. So you can now go ahead and do your like electric gravity bullshit, and then I'll explain to you why it's stupid.
Okay, so we have 2 fallacies there, because notice how he didn't provide the proof for. He just listed the theory. So that, again, a couple different fallacies there. I'm going to try to keep it as simple as possible. So he has components here of a compositional logical fallacy as well as the reification logical fallacy. I'm going to put it under reification just because he started mentioning all the other planetary bodies as if it's all interdependent and as if it proves something it doesn't actually prove. And he also didn't prove the theory true in the first place, because even if it is true, that doesn't mean it applies to all these other things. So we're going to put it in reification there. And then we have to do another one because he added the ad hom here. Since he didn't prove his point and provide evidence, we are going to add the ad hom. Just to clarify, I will not be adding the ad hom if he produces a non-fallacious argument and adds the ad hom on top of it. So another fallacy here for Professor Dave. This might be a record most fallacies in least amount of time so far. And Flat Earth Dave is doing pretty good here. Not a single fallacy yet. I've seen a couple of his other debates. He actually does use a lot of fallacies as well, but let's see how good he does here.
Well, the question is, does anybody any scientist or anybody that's ever proven that any of the luminaries we see in the sky are even physical, let alone spheres?
Yeah, we can see them in telescopes.
You can see them. So you believe that if you see something, that'll tell you its shape. So when I look at this, are these spheres?
Oh.
Are these spheres, Dave? Are these spheres?
Yeah, no, I've seen this little trick, and I know the third one.
Yeah, so this I finally found the freaking video, and let me see if I can present it, because even with that, like, you'll see that those shapes, like they're not all the same. There's cylinders, like there's a half a sphere, there's a and a flat circle thing, and he completely dismisses it. Doesn't even let him show the video, doesn't let him talk about it, none of that stuff. So this is so Professor Dave, again, that moron loser, Farina, whatever his name is, he said the 10 things all flat earthers say. It's a very popular video. Again, I've told people this, like that I get this video often. And sorry, I was just reading a comment. And
flat earthers say. Number one extremely problematic side effect of taking the globe and flattening it out into a plane is that gravity makes no sense, and there is no reason for things to fall to the ground.
Quite simply, objects fall or rise based on their relative density to the medium surrounding them. Apples fall because they are denser than the air, while helium balloons rise because they are lighter. No gravity necessary. This is why raindrops fall down through the air and air bubbles rise up through water. Everything seeks its relative density and rises or falls until settling accordingly. This is why a tiny pebble sinks to the bottom of the ocean, but gigantic cruise ships and aircraft carriers stay afloat on the surface, because even though a pebble is so small, its mass relative to its volume, its density, is more than water, so it sinks.
So this guy online on YouTube, again, another guy, he just shows like all these different experiments that debunk gravity, and yeah.
And even though a cruise ship is so large, its mass relative to its volume is less than water, so it floats. If Newton's apple had landed in a puddle instead of on his head, he would have seen the apple only fell through the air because it was denser than the air, but then floated on top of the water because it was less dense than water. Have you ever noticed how it's easier to stay afloat with your lungs full of air than it is when they're empty? Submarines float on the surface when their ballast tanks are filled with air, but when the vents are opened and seawater floods in, they begin to sink as the submarine's density becomes greater than water. Depending what depth they wish to dive, sailors simply adjust the ratio of air and water in their tanks, and when ready to resurface, they blow compressed air into the tanks, forcing the seawater out, lowering the density, and thus causing them to rise back to the surface. We can also prove this fact of relative density by filling a balloon with approximately half helium and half air. Since helium is lighter than the oxygen, nitrogen, and other gases that compose the air around us, filling a balloon with just the right amount of helium to compensate for and balance out the density of the plastic results in a gravity-defying, levitating balloon at equilibrium that neither rises nor falls.
All objects accelerate towards the ground at 9.8 meters per second squared. That's an indisputable fact.
Oh, really? Is it an indisputable fact that feathers fall to the ground at 9.8 meters per second squared? Is it indisputable that dandelion seeds fall to the ground at that rate? What about skydivers with an open parachute? What if we're falling through water? The rate at
I will reiterate my background again. Also involved like being part of like a parachute company and airborne people and all that stuff. And there are people, depending on your weight, that they will absolutely fall faster. And you have to take this in consideration when people drop out of the planes as to who drops first.
which things fall has everything to do with the relative densities between the object and medium, and has nothing to do with the fictional
And yes, I've jumped out of planes too
pulling force of
and repelled out and name it. With parachutes and without parachutes.
gravity, nor does the rate or manner in which objects fall have any bearing whatsoever on the shape of the Earth. But this type of sophistry is the kind of tacky glue that holds the whole heliocentric model together.
And it is also an indisputable fact that any acceleration requires a force to produce it. This is how cars drive, planes fly, people walk, cats jump. It's how literally all motion works. Most of you address this problem by simply listing two words, density and buoyancy. Well, I hate to break it to you guys, but these are not forces. Forces are vectors. They have a magnitude, which means a numerical amount, and a direction, which means they have to point somewhere. Density is simply mass per unit volume, or how much matter sits in a particular space. It doesn't point anywhere. And buoyancy is simply a measurement of an object's tendency to float. You say that objects fall down because they are more dense than the air below them. Why down? Why not up or sideways? When you let go of a ball, there is air all around it. How does it know to fall down? Also, objects fall down when they're in a vacuum, which means there is no air below them. What's happening there?
I could similarly ask you, if gravity is real and responsible for keeping all the world's buildings, oceans, and people stuck to the ground, then why does it have no effect on pulling down a simple children's balloon? Are helium balloons magical anti-gravity devices? No. We live in a density gradient, and since the combination of plastic and helium present in the balloon is less dense than the nitrogen, oxygen, carbon, and other elements in the air around it, it rises.
Like the air or environment around it too, right? Because like there's like environments that could be achieved. And also what he's talking about, the point with this as well, is this is only able to happen in a contained environment, right? So this is, again, is further proof of the firmament / dome above.
Likewise, if I release the helium and then blow up the balloon again, the magical anti-gravity properties disappear because now it is denser than the air around it. But wait, I thought Professor Dave, he's not really a professor.
No.
Cool story though, bro. I thought not a Professor Dave said that it's an indisputable fact that all objects fall to the ground at 9 point.
I don't even know if he even has a degree in anything, like a full one. So, yeah.
8 meters per second.
And that's not to slam people for that. There are people that are autodidactic that are brilliant. They just have not gotten their education or their academics from from specific education systems, but there are people that have access to information through archives, through books, through literature, through libraries, and then their own research and stuff like that within their own communities. And yeah.
Squared. Why doesn't a
But this guy saying that he's a professor and when he's not one, like that's where there's a little bit of a rub, right? And I think that he's someone that's paid and controlled opposition, which is why he's annoying to me. because it's like if he knows better and he's doing this, like he's just literally a gross, slimy weasel, and he's not helping anyone. Like he's really like, so not only is he just like not being silent about what he knows, he's also actively part of like these pricks that are trying to dupe us. And so like, and it's yeah.
A balloon filled with carbon dioxide fall at this indisputable
And I hope he doesn't procreate unless he changes. Like, I'm sorry, I know that's rude, but
rate. Gravity is clearly racist against balloons, feathers, and other objects with relative densities near that of the medium surrounding them. Huh, Dave? So again, to answer your question, objects are not tending towards the Earth, they are tending towards their density equilibrium. The least dense gases rise highest, while the most dense solids fall lowest. Here on Earth, so much solid matter has piled up in the dense direction that we actually have a platform to walk upon. But we are not yet at our density equilibrium, so we are constantly pushing downwards. Just as a helium balloon that rises and hits a ceiling has not yet reached its density equilibrium, and so it constantly pushes upwards on the ceiling.
Number 2, flat earthers all say, I shouldn't see this thing, but I do, so the earth is flat. Then to justify this claim, you all say the same thing, typically with no context whatsoever. 8 inches per mile squared. None of you have any idea what this means. You can't derive it. You can't calculate anything with it. You can't make a prediction with it. You can't tell me anything about this value at all. When I point this out to you, you get very angry, and instead of answering simple questions, you just link me to a bunch of videos made by con men. 8 inches per mile squared is not a valid way to measure Earth's curvature. If you understood math, you would immediately see that this squared on miles is totally out of place. That's because this is a parabolic approximation. This is for doing calculations with a parabola.
And they have to use these big words, right? Like parabolic, you know what I mean? Whatever you know.
It's possible that you remember this shape from middle school algebra, but I wouldn't be surprised if you don't. As you can see, the Earth is not shaped like this. So where does it come from, and why do people use it?
To begin with, the curvature formulas and curvature calculators that exist for the globe model were created by you globe Earth proponents, not us flat earthers. We are simply using the figures and formulas you yourselves claim as representing reality and proving through easily observable, demonstrable, repeatable results that the alleged curvature does not exist. Non-Professor Dave tries to belittle flat earthers for using the parabolic 8 inches per mile squared approximation, but then refuses to mention the fact that this formula gives the same results as the more complicated trigonometrical formula for up to 300 miles, which is far longer.
So there, and I don't know if you can see this, but freaking overlay thing. I need to get better at this. Anyway, it's from Edward Henry, page 22 and 23. Also, like shows their distances, their mathematics. Okay, back to you.
Than anyone needs for practical curvature observations. The fact that observers at sea level on clear days can see islands, buildings, and mountains, often over 50 to 100 miles away, completely destroys the assertion that we live on a ball 25,000 miles in circumference. Regardless of which curvature formula or curvature calculator used, you can even check the Metabunk or other globe apologist sites, input the figures, and see that these simple observations are in complete defiance of the globe's math.
Number 3, all flat earthers say the same 2 things about water. The first is, water doesn't curve, and the second is, water finds its own level. The second phrase is completely meaningless, so the fact that you all say that exact thing verbatim is just one of the many demonstrations that you all blindly repeat what you hear without giving it a moment's thought. As for the first phrase, stating that water doesn't curve is at least a coherent thought. However, it is dead wrong. Put a drop of water on a piece of wax paper or a leaf. What does it look like? A freaking sphere. Isn't that something? In your haste to mindlessly parrot what you heard from flat earth priests about water, you forgot to look at water.
What you mindlessly parrot, he says all this stuff, you know what I mean? So of course people are not going to want to follow that trend, right? If they think that this is how people talk about people like this.
Water curves, my friends. Look at this curved minute.
But obviously, as you can tell, I don't give a shit about not a Professor Dave either.
Look at these waves. Water curves all the time.
Holy snarky strawmen, Batman. Not really a Professor Dave is stooping to new levels of sarcastic sophistry. Let me try doing this with that condescending cadence he delivers so naturally. Well, Dave, water most certainly does find its own level, and that's why water has been used as the #1 most accurate leveling tool for thousands upon thousands of years. Water does not have the ability to stay piled upon itself, so it will always flow outwards towards the lowest uncontained point. Once contained, the surface of undisturbed water will always remain level, with no deviation in elevation from one point to any other. As for the straw man, water doesn't curve, Dave has conveniently shortened this to suit his narrative, when he should have said, large bodies of water at rest do not curve. The claim is large bodies of water sticking to and curving around a ball, not a single drop of water beating. That is a false equivalency and a straw man. We are not talking about the beating of a single drop of water, nor the meniscus in a glass of water, nor static electricity bending running water towards a comb. So any of these sophist examples put forth trying to prove curved water do nothing but show the desperation of these pseudoscientists to come up with such red herrings.
I hope you can
Number 4.
understand that, right? When you alter the state of the water in order to try to fit your your poor arguments, it's not doing the experiment in a controlled environment that is replicating the actual environment itself. I hope that makes sense, right? So water does seek level, unless it's agitated or in another state, if that makes any sense. And so they can't use that.
You are all quite perplexed about how Earth's atmosphere can exist next to the vacuum of space. This one is rather amusing because what's happening is that since you have no science education, your only context for the word vacuum.
And for the record, I do have science education. And I started experimenting like with science stuff like as a freaking kid, yeah. So, and Eric Dubé as well has a science background. Like this guy again with that, like not Professor Dave is yeah.
Vacuum is a vacuum cleaner. And again, because you have no science education, none of you understand how a vacuum cleaner works, which is a problem because you seem to think that outer space is a vacuum cleaner. Let's take a moment and clear this up. A vacuum is any region where there is no stuff. Here, there is stuff, like air. In space, there is no stuff, or at least very, very close to no stuff. Space is essentially empty. That's a vacuum. It is not a thing that sucks. Vacuums don't suck. Everyone say it with me together. Vacuums don't suck.
Thanks so much for educating us on the subtle nuances and intricacies of how sucking works, Dave. I'm sure we all agree you are uniquely well qualified for explaining this subject. Unfortunately, though, your sucky straw man explanation still has not provided demonstrable proof of how a positive pressure system like Earth's atmosphere can exist adjacent to a negative pressure system like space without a solid barrier between the two. Anytime two opposing pressure systems come together without some solid membrane separating them, an equilibrium is quickly achieved. Nobody except Dave is saying space should suck Earth's atmosphere like a vacuum cleaner. We are saying, show us a demonstration of two opposing pressure systems without.
Yeah. So you've got people that intentionally are not deceiving us, I think intentionally. You've got people like Young and Neil deGrasse Tyson and Bill Nye, the comedian, who's not a friggin' scientist or professor either. And like they say he's an astrophysicist, all this stuff. Okay, there are people that are given degrees and or educational backgrounds that are not even real, right? So I've shared this too. This is a small example with Doug Ford. His post-secondary schooling, it's a high school education system that was renamed, like I think it was in 2018 or whatever, to be a post-secondary school education system, and then aligned forward with it. So again, another person that's not academically qualified to be in the position he's in, and lying to us about his about his education in general. And then we have Justin Trudeau, our leader, who part-time drama teacher, and then Chrystia Freeland, who is her background was in journalism. Like anyway, people. And even Teresa Tam, like our expert, who's not an expert, is someone who's not didn't even work or operate in their field. Someone that went right from getting a degree to being on panels.
Any solid.
I'm going on all these tangents. I'm so sorry. Oh my goodness. And as you can tell, I'm in Canada, and I'm just on the outskirts of the capital. And there's other points that I was going to talk about before getting into this flat Earth stuff. And for the record, I also think the Earth is artificially designed. It's an artificial intelligence that was created either by one divine creator or multiple, and that that it's being projected on a flat plane of inertia via toroidal fields and hyperboloids, and being run via like the energy that we use to run this cosmos, whatever you want to call it, is electricity, dielectricity, and magnetism. And
barrier between them that do not equilibrate. If you cannot demonstrate this, but wish to claim this only happens at a scale too large for you to recreate, that is wishful thinking, not science.
Number 5, one of your favorite little gotcha challenges is to request that we demonstrate how water can stick to a ball spinning at 1,000 miles per hour. The implication is that water and everything else should fly off of it, like a child getting thrown from a merry-go-round. Well, it's very cute that you get overwhelmed by numbers with 4 digits in them, but in actuality, the Earth spins once per day. One time in 24 hours. Get on a merry-go-round and have someone push you one time around over 24 hours. Not a very thrilling ride, is it? The issue is that the Earth is really, really big. So if instead of using rotational velocity to describe a rotating body like a normal person, you try to use linear tangential velocity, you're going to get a pretty big number. But to be honest, it's still not really that big.
It seems you're the one getting overwhelmed by your own globe figures, Dave. The alleged speed at which your tilting, wobbling, spinning space testicle Earth is actually supposed to rotate at the equator is 1,039 miles per hour. We are all well aware that this means 1 rotation per day, but thanks for continuing.
Yeah, and to further that, I've also discussed how, like, even with the zodiac signs, the constellations, like I show the like where it starts in Aries at 6 a.m. and that the sun moves in an ecliptical path, like 15 degrees every hour, and it moves through a sign. It takes 2 hours to get through, which is 30 degrees, and how going through Gemini Cancer, like at the 12 p.m. mark, is the highest point in the sky, and the lowest point being Capricorn Sagittarius mixed cusp. Anyway, and yeah, stuff that not a Professor Dave has no idea about.
To speak to your audience like illiterate, petulant children and pretending we cannot understand such basic concepts.
Furthermore, this little water doesn't stick to a ball challenge is the strawiest straw man that was ever made of straw. The Earth is huge. It generates an enormous gravitational field. That's why everything sticks to it. A ball is very tiny. It does not generate an enormous gravitational field, so things don't stick to it.
So again, just like your last point, you cannot demonstrate water curving around and sticking to a ball, but wish to claim it only happens on a scale too large for you to recreate. That is no different from me claiming that unicorns exist, and when asked to show a single example of one, I cannot, but instead I say, unicorns do too exist, but they are macrocosmic invisible unicorns that cannot be observed. Invisible macrocosmic unicorns may exist in Dave's fantasy delusions, but if he cannot show a single demonstrable evidential example, it is by definition not scientific.
Number 6, lots of you say that moonlight is cold. This is astonishing for a number of reasons. The first is that it is not related to any claim you could possibly be making in order to argue for a flat Earth. But the second and much more important detail is that it is the perfect demonstration of the fact that you have no clue how science works. Some flat Earth priest measured the temperature under the moonlight and then again under something providing shade. Wow, moonlight makes it colder. But does it? Shouldn't you add some element of control to your experiment? What's a control, you ask? You see, your measurement isn't evidence of anything. You now have to repeat the experiment when there is no moonlight to make sure that the moonlight was indeed the cause of the discrepancy in temperature. This is something you should have learned in middle school, but don't worry, I'll finish the experiment for you. Take the measurements again on a night with a new moon so that there is no moonlight. Look at that. You'll get the same result. So the moonlight absolutely wasn't the reason for the discrepancy in temperature.
There are countless videos proving moonlight to be colder than moonshade, including peer-reviewed published experiments like in the Lancet journal. People can perform their own research on this topic, but I have to point out the obvious flaw Dave seems to have overlooked while he was so busy talking down to his audience. Dave assumes we don't know what a control is and insists that doing the experiment on different days during different phases of the moon will give different temperatures. Yes, Dave, of course it will, because it's a different day. Control experiments must be done simultaneously for them to be able to control for anything. Redoing the experiment under different conditions on a different day is anything but a control. Regardless, the experiment has been done countless times by different people with the same results. Moonlight, especially during the full moon, is colder than moonshade. You did get one thing right, though, and that is that this, once again, has nothing to do with flat Earth. It's funny how desperate you are to come up with 10 things all flat earthers supposedly say, yet several of your examples are just random red herrings that have nothing to do with the shape of the Earth.
Number 7, many of you say some unintelligible nonsense about water flowing uphill, or that on the globe model, some rivers flow uphill. This one is so stupid that I genuinely can't believe any human could fall for it. You'll look at a globe and say that a river flows this way and that this is somehow uphill, because you seem to think that up on the screen is some kind of universal up in space. Listen up, there is no up and down in space. This is not up, this is not down. To believe so would be as dumb as thinking that on Earth, whichever way you happen to be facing is north. No one on Earth is upside down or on their side. Up on Earth is away from the surface of the Earth, no matter where you are on the Earth.
Here, in yet another example of globe earthers trying to make common sense sound like nonsense, we hear that up is not up and down is not down. People live stuck all around a ball Earth, but nobody is sideways or upside down. Globe believers hate thinking about people being sideways or upside down on their silly ball, so they just claim there is no such thing as up or down to calm their fevered brains. But regardless of their internal mind games, their ball model has people stuck at any and all of 360-degree inclinations around the thing, which means people would by necessity be walking around sideways and upside down relative to one another. Likewise, Earth's many hundreds of rivers are constantly flowing north, south, east, west, and every other intermediary direction simultaneously, some of which flow for hundreds of miles with only the slightest of change in elevation, an absolute impossibility on a globe of given proportions.
Number 8. Many flat earthers remain dumbfounded by the idea that the Earth is slightly closer to the sun in winter than in summer. As I've said before, winter up north is summer down south and vice versa. So your confusion is one of northern hemisphere narcissism, but it is also one of complete ignorance. Here's the Earth. Here's the light coming from the sun. Look at this portion. It hits the Earth straight on. Look at this portion. Because of the curvature of the Earth, the light hits the surface at an angle and is therefore distributed around a greater area. Same amount of heat distributed around a larger area, lower average temperature. This is absolutely trivial to understand.
Thanks, Dave. Nobody is dumbfounded or confused about these simple pseudoscientific claims you're making. We're simply presenting the inconsistencies of your model to you in question form because we're used to thinking for ourselves and allowing others to think for themselves, rather than condescendingly talking down to everyone from a pedestal like you're some infallible superior being armed with objective truth. The question is simple. How can the globe model purport the sun to be approximately 3 million miles closer to Earth in January, when winter and
I'm gonna stop it here too because there's so many points that people can make, like that just refute not a Professor Dave. And so even I'll stop sharing this and I'll just give you even one point that I've talked about this before. It's about seeing in July with the majority of the world seeing sunlight. And if you look at the like all of these like fake videos and graphs and stuff like that people like not a Professor Dave and NASA stuff like that show, it actually makes it's impossible. Like it just by using their own models and their own science and stuff like that. So it's not like we're getting this from anyone else, but the actual people that are trying to lie about this stuff. And so I hope you can see this. So 99% of the world's population in sunlight, July 8th, and other dates, and this happens frequently, right? So in and around that time, that would be impossible if the sun was what is it, 93 million miles away or 150 million miles away. What like it depends on where you get your science from. Oh, I just remembered. I'm sharing still the not the video. I'm learning. So I'm keeping on with this video, even though I have a lot of other things I can talk. Actually, before I share, I will say that before I forget, with these different upticks in people getting sick during this period right now in Canada and across the world in countries that have a higher vaccine rate, and people are also saying there's people that are in hospitals saying that it's hard to tell what are allergies, what are immune issues, and then what is the flu or what is COVID. And these are really important points to address and get through. And and my point to that is there are adverse events and responses that are happening within these therapeutics that are making it where people are having these issues. And then also with more, like I guess getting more exacerbated with other illnesses or diseases in the environment. This is also something that can like further make people have like more like adverse responses to additional injury. I hope I'm making sense with this stuff. Because with the therapeutics in a lot of the trials and a lot of the stuff that's coming out with the white blood cells like not producing at the rate they should, and then getting lower and lower the production, like the more vaccines people have. Again, these are in scientific medical publications that are out there. They're just being censored in Canada. Even trying to get this friggin' video that I've watched before, even recently and shared recently with debunking Professor Dave. It took me how long to find that friggin' video again. And so this is what I mean. They're getting really, really good at really pushing down these videos. And this video should be at the top of Professor Dave's video, but it's not in reality, right? And you're not even going to get it unless you specifically search for it. And even then, it's really hard to get around the censorship. And so yeah, with these, like they're calling for like new therapeutics, that are going to be even better than the ones that we just got done with, I guess. And yeah, I hope that people just consider taking a look at trials, data coming out, data that I've shared as well, and look at other ways, possibly like natural ways to boost your immunity and your health and things like that, and not rely on a therapeutic for things that you could get better help from yourself. So my point before was about doctors, and I think I failed to mention is that they were saying that with the mandates and the restrictions and locking people in their houses and not having access to gyms and all this other stuff, and this was making people even more sick, right? And there's a lot of people in their households, they have chemicals, like even with like Glade air fresheners and with certain candles that can cause people to be like inflamed and sick, right? Because these are ingredients that that the body is like doesn't want in and around it, right? These are considered to be poisons or toxins or whatever, and the body will fight to remove this and filter these toxins from our body. And so if we're introducing even more stress onto our body, then again, it's just making us more susceptible to having like adverse symptoms and bad reactions, comorbid conditions and stuff like that. I hope I'm making sense of this as well. So this time around, I would hope that people start doing the things that actually will help with their health and not let their health go down, right? Because the comorbid conditions for people that were having poor outcomes had to do with obesity. So if you gain weight during this pandemic and you're trying to be a social justice warrior for vaccines and masks, then like no offense, you're an idiot. And or at the very least, you're very egotistical and ignorant and hypocritical. And yeah, and there's so much more I could talk about too. Yeah, if you weren't getting out to in the sunlight and filtering your water and things like that, but you were pushing it, things on people that that where there was the risk of so many different issues, then I don't know what to do. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going on a tangent. Again, it's been a while since I've done a video, and I really need to get in the swing of this stuff. I would also like to be invited to certain people's podcasts. I'm just going to finish this video.
Over the Earth than in July, when Earth experiences its warmest temperatures. Dave claims due to the ball Earth's tilt, different places receive different amounts of direct sunlight, and that is what produces the seasonal and temperature changes. This makes no sense, however, because if the sun's heat travels over 90 million miles to reach the ball Earth, how could a slight tilt, a mere few thousand miles maximum, negate the sun's 90 million mile journey, giving us simultaneous tropical summers and Antarctic winters? Ball believers also say the sun is 1 million times larger than the Earth, so regardless of how you tilt the globe, there will still be plenty of direct sunlight.
Number 9. Many flat earthers refer to the body of scientific knowledge as scientism. This is meant to be derogatory, implying that science is a religion. I'm very sorry, but saying this just demonstrates that you know nothing about science and probably didn't pass a single science class in high school. Science students are not told what to believe. They are shown how to perform experiments. Even in high school physics, students use blocks and ramps and balls and pendulums and carts and rulers and timers to derive Newton's laws and many other such pillars of science. So using the word scientism only serves to disqualify you from adult conversation regarding science. In actuality, it is quite clear why you adopt this viewpoint, because you just accept whatever you hear if it's what you want to believe. This is why your beliefs are baseless. Since you are incapable of doing anything other than repeating what you were told, you assume that
like some people like the response to these videos, like they end up hating this guy so much. But like I laugh because like yeah, it's just entertaining to me, like how hypocritical this is. Like if he actually believes this stuff, like the irony is not lost on me. Like that, like he should be looking in a mirror as he's saying this. It's just
others are doing the same thing, but they are not.
Scientism is simply another way of saying pseudoscience. For example, when you claim that bodies of water can curve around, stick to objects, and display the shape of said objects upon their surface, like the alleged ball Earth under your alleged curved oceans, but cannot give a single demonstrable example on a scale small enough to recreate, that is called scientism or pseudoscience. Likewise, when you claim that opposing pressure systems can exist side by side without a solid barrier between them, but cannot provide a single evidential example of this claim, you are spouting more scientism.
And to wrap things up, number 10, the pièce de résistance, the claim that we have all been indoctrinated, that we have been brainwashed by schools, by the government, by NASA, by Freemasons, by Hollywood.
Even me, I don't say brainwashed, like it's because even in the education systems growing up, like we don't get a lot of the details, like even in the post-elementary school education system, because like I think that this would be something that would be caught earlier on, right? Like because like as kids develop more cognitively, then they ask more questions, they're more, curious about the world, like experimental and stuff like that. And this is where this stuff would come out, right? So like this is like this very basic information given at the elementary school level, and then it's basically like on your own essentially to figure out like the rest, and which is why a lot of people don't know the facts about what they're saying about this globe Earth model and everything that goes along with it, that these theories that they're making up and stuff like that. And so no one's saying that. We're just saying that it's yeah, no, it's you just don't have access to the information that you think you do.
Take your pick. Well, as I have demonstrated in this clip, you all say the same exact ridiculous things word for word, like you're reciting the oath of the Flat Earth fraternity. So it's a rather silly accusation to be throwing around. The fact that you all say the same things is not...
Like what I mean is people are so committed to the globe Earth that they absolutely refuse to listen to any of the arguments or the points that I bring up. And then I ask if you can bring up any points or facts about their globe Earth model, anything. And I get fish kisses and I get nothing, or I get insults or I get blocked, all that stuff. And I ask, even just give me one. And it's almost impossible, right? And they say, well, Google it. I'm like, well, I'm telling you, that Google is not the place to get access to this information. Like I know this from experience. Sorry, I'm spitting what I'm saying, and I'm proving it. And you're just not giving yourself the opportunity to actually take a look at the information, because your brain, I'd say, because you're brainwashed, because I was there too, brainwashed into believing that the flat Earth model is just stupid and pseudoscience and archaic and all of this stuff. Like this is where I'm saying, so it's not, yeah.
Not surprising in the slightest. What do you do?
I don't think you're getting brainwashed in the school system is what I'm trying to say.
Want to brainwash someone? You tell them they have already been brainwashed.
Yes, globe earthers say flat earthers have been brainwashed, and flat earthers say globe earthers have been brainwashed. But think about this. Globe earthers are simply advocating the first version of reality they were taught as little children. Meanwhile, all flat earthers were actually taught that exact same version of reality as children, the only difference being that they went back as adults and did their due diligence in researching the opposing arguments without any bias or cognitive dissonance to see whether or not what they were taught as children still stood up to the critical scrutiny of a discerning adult. Then, after doing so, and finding fatal flaws in the model, these discerning adults went against all of society, enduring endless insults and ridicule, many losing friends and family members in the process, all for daring to question this globe gospel. So tell me, Professor, who sounds more brainwashed? The diligent and discerning adults able to override their initial bias and cognitive dissonance enough to research and reach a completely opposite understanding of that which was first taught to them? Or those who simply continued believing what they were originally taught as children?
Yeah, so he smashes Professor Dave's like one of his most popular videos, and it's really, really hard to even get access to that information. I can give so many more videos on that. I don't want to insult people or annoy people or frustrate people with this information. It's just anyone that's on my channel, like I try to discuss the reality of the world and the truth about it. And unfortunately, this is just a really big piece that is still being pushed aside and heavily censored. And part of why people are not taking me seriously in the scientific community and or in my international security analyst community, because people are just like actively refusing to take a look at the information. I have some interesting information regarding like the last name Christ. I don't know how many people know that Christ is a last name, and so I will just give some information that I've shared on social media, and that you might find interesting. Maybe I'll start with this one. I don't recommend Wikipedia for any scientific dissertations, like to reference, but there is sometimes some good stuff on it. So you have Elizabeth Christ Trump. So her name was Elizabeth Christ. She comes from the Christ last name family, and she was the grandmother of Donald Trump, the 45th, I believe it was, president of the United States. And so I wanted to look into that last name. So now I have to stop sharing and get into sharing mode again. So I was like, oh, I want to take a look at the Christ name. And so you can see that the places that have the most occurrences of the last name Christ, you've got Germany, and then you've got the United States, per capita, Brazil, France, Switzerland. I had a map too, so let me just see. Yeah, I'll put this up. So I hope you can still see that information. Sorry, I just have to go from a secure browser and then enter the information that I want to show you into a less secure browser. So yeah, that's pretty interesting with that. And then I will just give you where you can see a map. I'm more of a visual person myself, so I do like to see like the breakdown. Oh, I actually already had it up. So Christ's name distribution map. So even in Canada, we have there's 218 families or people with the last name Christ. 9,816 in the U.S., like Alaska and Brazil. 3,202. And then even in the Bible, there's discussions of Christ and possibly being subservient to God. Oh, I don't mean to insult anyone when I say this stuff. And yeah, because I also do believe that the Jesus, Mithras, Dionysus, Osiris, and Brahma, Krishna, like so many representations of the sun are out there. And I think that again, like that Jesus is a representation of the sun, and God is the creator of this multidimensional earth plane, and his coding is in everything. And so like that's why I also believe that they say that God is everywhere and everything and omnipresent and omnipotent and all this stuff, because he's the literal creator. So like his coding or whatever he used to make this artificial reality, the simulation is yeah, this is his work. And this is a constructed reality, as mentioned. There's no Big Bang. And by the way, even with people that believe in the Big Bang theory, you have to believe in a miracle that happened, like a nothing being created, sorry, something being created from nothing, which is also not reality. And I think, oh my God, I can go on all these tangents, but I think I will. So yeah, that's interesting about the Christ connection with Trump and it being in his family and then the lineage and then where it's located and where people are throughout the world with this last name. And then it just makes you kind of think, right? Makes you kind of think. And then of course I went into the Bible. Actually, I'll stop sharing because I go into the online, let me just show you. Yeah, sure. So there's I just typed in the word Christ earlier for the King James version of the Bible, which again was written by Sir Francis Bacon, aka Shakespeare. Oh my God. And like the first incidence of like the name Christ actually was in Matthew, so it's not in Genesis or any of the Revelations. It's not in, yeah, so Matthew. And there's 50 plus reserves. So over 50. So this is the first mention of the name Christ in the King James Version of the Bible. So the book of the generation of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. So it could be, again, like he's like the sun in the sky during this period and this period. And or like Jesus Christ could have just been like in the family tree of the lineage of this Elizabeth Christ who married Trump's grandfather. So I'm just giving you different examples of Christ in the Bible. Until Christ are 14 generations. Now the birth of Jesus Christ was on the wise, when as his mother Mary was espoused to Joseph, before they came together, she was found with child of the Holy Ghost. Question that. And when he had gathered all the chief priests and scribes of the people together, he demanded of them where Christ should be born. That's going to worship. Now when John had heard in the prison the works of Christ, he sent two of his disciples. This is an allegory. So even with rabbis, so be not ye called rabbi, for one is your master, even Christ, and all ye are brethren. So are rabbis subservient to Christ's? So like this again, like is this a last name? Is this like a prominent family in certain areas? And again, God, like above all else, is the master of everyone here. And so anyone that's to idolize or worship anything on this earth plane, that like even Jesus and Mary is not getting it. You're idolizing false idols or lights that were created by God in one day. So you might as well like worship the firmament, because like that took like an entire day to be created and built, and to separate the waters above from the waters below. And yeah, anyway, I'm going on all these tangents. It's probably super not interesting anymore. So I have no more points to bring for today. So on that note, I really do hope that everyone has a wonderful day.